I never thought I'd be posting here, but I'm at my wit's end and could use some advice. I'm 52, and my wife Rebecca is 49. We've been married for 27 years, have 2 grown kids, and 3 grandkids. Life was good, or so I thought. It all started about 6 months ago when we hired Sam, a 25-year-old male nanny, to help with our grandchildren. Rebecca insisted we needed the extra help, even though I thought we were managing fine. She was adamant about hiring Sam specifically, saying he came highly recommended. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags, but I was too trusting, too blind to see what was happening right under my nose. At first, everything seemed normal. Sam was great with the kids, and Rebecca seemed more relaxed with the extra help around. But then I started noticing little things. Rebecca began paying more attention to her appearance, buying new clothes, and spending more time at the gym. She'd get defensive if I asked about her day or her plans. One night, I woke up to find her texting at 2 a.m. When I asked who she was talking to, she snapped at me, saying it was just work. But since when did her accounting job require middle-of-the-night communications? I tried to brush it off, but a nagging feeling started to grow in the pit of my stomach. As weeks went by, Rebecca's behavior became more erratic. She'd volunteer to take the grandkids out with Sam, insisting I stay home and relax. She started having girls' nights more frequently, coming home late smelling of alcohol and sometimes cologne. When I'd question her, she'd turn it around on me, accusing me of being controlling and paranoid. I felt like I was going crazy. Was I imagining things? Was I just being an insecure old man? I tried talking to our kids about it, but they brushed it off, saying their mom was probably just going through a phase or enjoying her newfound freedom now that they were grown. But the final straw came last Tuesday. I had a dentist appointment canceled at the last minute, so I decided to surprise Rebecca by coming home early. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Sam's car parked on the street. Odd, I thought, since he wasn't supposed to be working that day. I entered the house quietly, hearing muffled sounds coming from upstairs. My heart was pounding as I climbed the stairs, trying to convince myself that there was a perfectly innocent explanation. Maybe Rebecca and Sam were just discussing the grandkids' schedules or something. As I approached our bedroom, the sounds became clearer. I heard Rebecca's voice, breathy and excited in a way I hadn't heard in years. Then I heard Sam's low groan. My world started spinning. I stood there, frozen, my hand on the doorknob. Part of me wanted to burst in and confront them, but another part was paralyzed with shock and disbelief. I don't know how long I stood there, listening to my wife of 27 years having sex with a man half her age in our bed. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I threw open the door, and there they were, Rebecca and Sam, naked and tangled in our sheets. The look on Rebecca's face when she saw me, I'll never forget it. It wasn't shame or remorse. It was annoyance, like I'd interrupted her favorite TV show. "What the hell is this?" I shouted, my voice shaking with rage and disbelief. Sam scrambled to cover himself, looking like a deer caught in headlights. But Rebecca? She just sat there, cool as ice, not even bothering to cover up. "Oh, grow up," she sneered. "Did you really think I was satisfied with our boring life? With you?" Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I turned to Sam, who was hastily pulling on his clothes. "Get out," I growled. "Get the fuck out of my house." He didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his shoes and bolted, leaving me alone with Rebecca. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca rolled her eyes. "Does it matter? It's not just Sam, you know. There have been others. You're just too pathetic to notice." I felt like I was going to be sick. Others? How many? How long had she been making a fool of me? I stumbled backwards, gripping the doorframe for support. My mind was reeling, trying to process everything. Rebecca just sat there, watching me with a mix of contempt and boredom. "Others?" I managed to choke out. "What do you mean, others?" She sighed dramatically, as if explaining something to a child. "Oh, please. There was Tom from my yoga class, Mike from the country club, even Sarah from my book club. Did you really think I was reading that much?" Each name felt like another knife in my chest. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I'd loved and trusted for nearly 3 decades had been living a completely different life behind my back. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why would you do this to us? To our family? Rebecca's face hardened. Because I was bored, John. Bored of you, bored of this life, bored of pretending to be the perfect wife and grandmother. I wanted excitement, passion. Things you haven't given me in years. Her cruel words cut deep, but they also ignited a spark of anger in me. And you couldn't talk to me about this? You had to go behind my back and sleep with half the town? Rebecca laughed bitterly. Talk to you? About what? How you've become a boring, complacent old man. How I feel suffocated in this marriage. You wouldn't have understood. You never do. I felt a surge of anger rising in me. You didn't even give me a chance. We could have worked on things, gone to counseling, anything. Instead, you chose to betray me, betray our family. She scoffed, finally reaching for her robe. Oh, spare me the dramatics. It's not like you're some innocent victim here. You checked out of this marriage years ago. You just didn't have the balls to do anything about it. I was stunned by her callousness. This wasn't the woman I married. It was like a stranger was wearing my wife's face. What about the kids? The grandkids? Did you ever think about how this would affect them? I asked, trying to appeal to any shred of decency she might have left. Rebecca's eyes flashed dangerously. Don't you dare bring them into this. They have nothing to do with it. This is between you and me. Between you and me? I laughed humorlessly. I think you lost the right to call this between us when you started inviting other people into our bed. Rebecca's face contorted with anger. You know what? I'm done explaining myself to you. This is who I am now. If you can't handle it, that's your problem. She stood up, tightening her robe around her. I'm going to take a shower. When I come out, I expect you to be gone. I need time to think. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was kicking me out of our bedroom? Our home? You need time to think? I sputtered. What about me? What about what I need? Rebecca turned back, her eyes cold. What you need doesn't matter anymore. It hasn't for a long time. Face it, John. Our marriage has been dead for years. I just had the guts to do something about it. As she slammed the bathroom door, I stood there, feeling like my whole world was crumbling around me. The sound of the shower starting snapped me out of my daze. I couldn't stay in that room a moment longer. I stumbled downstairs, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, sadness, and a crushing sense of failure all battled for dominance. How had I let things get this bad without noticing? Was I really as oblivious as Rebecca claimed? I found myself in the kitchen, mechanically going through the motions of making coffee. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the mug. As I waited for the coffee to brew, I tried to piece together the last few years of our marriage. Had there really been signs I'd missed? Sure, we'd grown a bit distant, but I thought that was normal after so many years together. We still had date nights, still made love occasionally. Or at least, I thought we did. Now I wondered if those rare intimate moments had just been Rebecca's way of keeping me in the dark. The coffee maker beeped, startling me out of my thoughts. I poured a cup and sat heavily at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the family photos on the wall. Happy faces smiled back at me, mocking what I now knew to be a lie. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sam. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Rebecca told me you had an open marriage. I swear I didn't know. I felt a fresh wave of anger and humiliation wash over me. An open marriage? Is that what Rebecca had been telling people? I typed out a scathing reply, then deleted it. Sam wasn't the real problem here, as much as I wanted to blame him. Just then, I heard Rebecca coming down the stairs. I braced myself for another confrontation, unsure if I had the strength for it. Rebecca walked into the kitchen, her hair wet from the shower, wearing fresh clothes like nothing had happened. She glanced at me with mild surprise. "Oh, you're still here," she said flatly, reaching for the coffee pot. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk about this, Rebecca. We can't just ignore what happened." She sighed, leaning against the counter. "What's there to talk about? I told you how I feel. How about the fact that you've been lying to me for years?" I shot back. "Or that you told Sam we had an open marriage?" Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "He told you that? Figures. He always was a bit of a coward. That's all you have to say? I asked, incredulous. No apology, no explanation? She shrugged. What do you want me to say, John? That I'm sorry? I'm not. The only thing I'm sorry about is that you found out this way. Her nonchalance was infuriating. Do you even care about our marriage at all? About our family? Of course I care about our family, she snapped. But I'm not going to apologize for wanting more out of life. You've become complacent, John. You stopped trying years ago. Her words stung, but I couldn't let her deflect the blame onto me. So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to cheat? How is that a solution, Rebecca? She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Don't act so high and mighty. I bet if you had the chance, you'd have done the same thing. No, I wouldn't have, I said firmly. Because I made a vow to you. I promised to be faithful in good times and bad. Those words meant something to me. Rebecca laughed bitterly. And what good did those vows do us? We've been living like roommates for years. I needed more, John. I needed passion, excitement. And you couldn't find that with me? We couldn't have worked on our relationship together? I asked, my voice cracking. She sighed, looking almost pitying. John, you don't get it. It's not just about sex. It's about feeling alive again. You're content with this boring, predictable life. I'm not. I felt a surge of anger. So you're saying our entire life together has been boring? Our kids, our grandkids, all the memories we've made, that means nothing to you? Rebecca's face softened slightly. Of course it means something. But it's not enough anymore. I've changed, John. I don't think you have. I sat there, stunned by her words. How could she dismiss our entire life together so easily? I tried to gather my thoughts, to find some way to reach her. Rebecca, I started, my voice low and serious. I hear you saying you've changed, that you need more excitement. But did you ever stop to think about how your actions would affect everyone else? Our kids, our grandkids? She flinched slightly at the mention of our family. They don't need to know about this. It doesn't concern them. I scoffed. Doesn't concern them? Rebecca, you've been sleeping with their nanny. How long do you think we can keep this a secret? And what about trust? How can they ever trust you again if they find out? Rebecca's face hardened. You wouldn't dare tell them? I don't want to, I admitted. But secrets have a way of coming out. And when this does, it's going to devastate them. Is that what you want? She looked away, a flicker of doubt crossing her face for the first time. Of course not. I love our family. But I can't keep living a lie, John. I can't pretend to be happy when I'm not. So what do you want? I asked, feeling exhausted. A divorce? An open marriage? What's your endgame here, Rebecca? She hesitated, seemingly at a loss for words. I don't know. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. You hadn't thought that far ahead? You've been cheating on me for God knows how long, and you never once considered the consequences? Rebecca had the decency to look slightly ashamed. I guess I just got caught up in the excitement of it all. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did, I said firmly. And now we have to deal with the fallout. So I'll ask you again, Rebecca. What do you want? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. Finally, she looked up at me, her eyes conflicted. I don't want to lose our family, John. But I don't think I can go back to the way things were either. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, hurt, but also a tiny flicker of hope. Maybe there was still something to salvage here. Okay, I said slowly. So where does that leave us? Rebecca sighed. I don't know. Maybe we could try counseling? See if there's any way to fix this? I was surprised by her suggestion. It was the first constructive thing she'd said all morning. But I couldn't help feeling skeptical. And what about Sam? And all the others? I asked. Are you willing to end all of that? To commit to working on our marriage? Rebecca hesitated, and I could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. But as I watched her, I felt something harden inside me. The pain, the betrayal, the sheer scale of her deception, it was too much. You know what? I said, my voice suddenly cold. I don't think I can do this anymore. Rebecca's eyes widened. What do you mean? I stood up, pushing my chair back. I want a divorce, Rebecca. she gasped, clearly not expecting this. John, wait. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, I'll dash. I cut her off. Oh. I'm done. You've been lying to me for years, sleeping with who knows how many people. You've made a mockery of our marriage, our family. I can't trust you anymore, and without trust, we have nothing. Rebecca's face crumpled. Please, John. I'll do anything. I'll cut off contact with everyone, I'll dash. It's too late for that, I said firmly. You should have thought about the consequences before you decided to cheat. I want you out of this house by the end of the week. I'll be contacting a lawyer today. She started to cry, reaching for me. John, please. 27 years. We can't just throw that away. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. You already did, Rebecca. You threw it away every time you decided to sleep with someone else. Every lie, every betrayal, that was you throwing our marriage away. I'm just making it official. Rebecca's tears flowed freely now, but I steeled myself against them. I'd seen enough of her manipulations. John, please reconsider, she pleaded. We can work through this. What about the kids? The grandkids? I laughed bitterly. Now you're worried about the family? You should have thought about them before you started screwing the nanny and half the neighborhood. She flinched at my words, but I continued. As for the kids, we're going to tell them the truth. All of it. They deserve to know why their family is falling apart. Rebecca's face paled. No, John, you can't. It'll destroy them. They'll hate me. Maybe they will, I said coldly. But that's the consequence of your actions. You don't get to hide behind lies anymore. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your things and leave. Today. I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. I'll have my lawyer contact you about dividing our assets. Rebecca sobbed, her body shaking. Where am I supposed to go? This is my home too. You should have thought about that before you invited other men into our bed, I snapped. Figure it out, Rebecca. You seemed pretty resourceful when it came to finding places to cheat on me. As I watched her break down, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also a strange sense of relief. The decision was made. There was no going back now. I turned away from Rebecca, unable to watch her cry any longer. I'm going to call the kids. They need to hear this from us, not through the grapevine. Rebecca's sobs quieted, replaced by a look of panic. John, please. Give me a chance to talk to them first. I'm their mother. I shook my head firmly. Oh. We do this together and we do it now. No more lies, no more secrets. I pulled out my phone and dialed our oldest, Mike. As it rang, Rebecca whispered, "What are you going to say?" "The truth," I replied simply. Mike answered on the third ring. "Hey Dad, what's up?" "Mike, I need you and Sarah to come over." It's important," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause. "Dad? Is everything okay? You sound weird." I glanced at Rebecca, who was wringing her hands nervously. "No, son. Everything is not okay. But I'd rather explain in person. Can you two come over?" "Yeah, of course," Mike replied, concern evident in his voice. "We'll be there in 20 minutes. After hanging up, I turned to Rebecca. "You've got 20 minutes to pull yourself together. Then we're going to sit down with our children and tell them exactly what's been going on." Rebecca nodded weakly, looking utterly defeated. As she trudged upstairs to freshen up, I sat heavily on the couch, dreading the conversation to come. The next 20 minutes felt like an eternity. I sat on the couch, my mind racing, trying to figure out how to break this news to our children. Rebecca came back downstairs, her face washed and makeup reapplied, but her eyes were still red and puffy. Just as the tension in the room became unbearable, we heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Rebecca stiffened beside me. "Remember," I said quietly, "we tell them everything. No sugarcoating, no excuses." She nodded silently as the front door opened. Mike and Sarah walked in, concern etched on their faces. "Dad? What's going on?" Sarah asked, looking between us. I took a deep breath. "Sit down, kids. We need to talk." They exchanged worried glances before settling onto the love seat across from us. I could see the questions in their eyes, the fear of what news could be so urgent. "There's no easy way to say this," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. Your mother and I are getting a divorce. The shock on their faces was immediate. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Mike just stared, disbelief written all over his face. What? Why? Sarah managed to choke out. I looked at Rebecca, silently urging her to speak. She cleared her throat, her voice trembling. I've been unfaithful to your father. The room fell silent, the weight of her confession hanging heavy in the air. The silence was deafening. Mike and Sarah sat there, stunned, their eyes darting between Rebecca and me. Finally, Mike spoke, his voice tight with anger. What do you mean, unfaithful? Mom, what did you do? Rebecca flinched at his tone but answered, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been seeing other people. For a while now. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. Other people? As in more than one? Mom, how could you? I decided to rip off the Band-Aid completely. One of them was Sam, your kid's nanny. The reaction was immediate. Sarah jumped to her feet, her face contorted with rage. Sam? Are you kidding me? He's been around our children. Mike looked like he was going to be sick. How long has this been going on? Rebecca couldn't meet their eyes. With Sam? About 6 months. But there were others before him. The room exploded into chaos. Sarah was yelling, tears streaming down her face. Mike had his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Rebecca was trying to explain herself, but her words were drowned out by our children's pain and anger. I sat there watching my family fall apart, feeling a strange mix of vindication and deep, crushing sadness. This was the moment the reality of our situation truly hit home. There was no going back from this. As the initial shock and outburst subsided, a heavy silence fell over the room. Sarah had collapsed back onto the love seat, her face in her hands. Mike was pacing, his jaw clenched tight. I can't believe this, Mike finally said, his voice low and controlled. All those times you watched the kids, Mom. Were you sneaking around then too? Rebecca shook her head vehemently. No, never when I was with the grandchildren. I would never dash. But you did. Sarah interrupted, her voice cracking. You brought that man into our lives, around our kids. How could you be so selfish? I cleared my throat. There's more you need to know. Your mother and I are getting divorced. I've asked her to move out immediately. Mike stopped pacing and looked at me. Good. I wouldn't want to stay with her either after this. Rebecca let out a choked sob. Please, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but you're my children. I love you. Sarah laughed bitterly. Love us? If you loved us, you wouldn't have done this. You've torn our family apart, them. I felt a need to intervene. Look, I know this is a lot to process. I'm angry too. But your mother is still your mother. In time, I hope you can find a way to forgive her, even if things can't go back to how they were. Mike shook his head. I don't know if I can, Dad. It's too much. As I watched my children grapple with this news, I realized the full extent of the damage Rebecca's actions had caused. It wasn't just our marriage that was broken, it was our entire family. The room fell silent again, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I looked around at my shattered family, my soon-to-be ex-wife, head bowed in shame, my daughter, tears streaming down her face, my son, anger radiating from every pore. This wasn't how I imagined our family would end up after 27 years of marriage. Finally, I spoke up. I know this is a lot to take in. We're all hurting right now, and that's okay. But we need to figure out how to move forward. Sarah wiped her eyes. What happens now, Dad? I sighed heavily. Your mother will be moving out. I'll be filing for divorce. We'll need to find a new nanny for your kids. And we'll all need time to heal. Mike nodded, his anger seeming to deflate slightly. What about the grandkids? What do we tell them? We'll figure that out together, I said. They're young. They don't need all the details, but we shouldn't lie to them either. Rebecca spoke up, her voice small. I'm so sorry. To all of you. I know it doesn't change anything, but I never meant to hurt you like this. There was a moment of tense silence before Sarah responded. We're going to need time, Mom. A lot of time. As we sat there, trying to process everything, I realized that this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey for our family. The road ahead would be difficult, full of hurt and anger, but also, hopefully, healing and forgiveness. I looked at my children, feeling a surge of love and protectiveness. "We'll get through this," I said firmly. "It won't be easy, but we're still a family. Different, broken maybe, but still a family." And as we sat there, in the wreckage of what once was, I knew that while our lives would never be the same, we would find a way to move forward. Because that's what families do, even when they're falling apart. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for watching my videos, sharing them, and supporting me along the way. Your views, comments, and likes are the driving force behind my passion to create captivating and unexpected stories. Every tale I share is more than just a plot. It's a journey of emotions, lessons, and reflections that we experience together. Your engagement brings life and soul to this channel. Thank you for sticking with me until the very end of each video because the finale of every story is where the real impact lies. I promise to continue delivering twists and turns that surprise, inspire, and resonate with your hearts.